Thanks for tuning into the Market Wrap. I'm Niraj Shah, and it turned out to be a day wherein the heavyweights or almost all the stocks shed some weight, as a result of which I think the markets cooled off a little bit. It seemed unnerving simply because it's the first time that we've not had the markets try to stage any kind of a comeback post 2:30, and that was the real trouble. So, key trade takeaways from the session today. Firstly, and I think in line with what the world markets have done, we've taken a breather with almost all the key stocks shedding some gains. You almost had a unilateral cut across forces, but across stocks, but for maybe a say like Bharti Airtel, etc. India X has moved up 20% in the current series. It was sub 19, I think 19.5 or thereabouts at the start of the month, the start of the series. India VIX is currently at 24, so volatility is inched up. Now, you can call it chicken and an egg situation, whether the volatility is inching up because the markets are cooling off or the increased volatility is leading to the markets cool off. I would suspect the latter. But nevertheless, the point being that India VIX has certainly shot up in the current series. I would presume all eyes are on for NBFCs the next week, if indeed there are some circulars that come out, which is the talk of town and what it does to NBFCs. And then, of course, that HDFC Bank comes out and goes out.
Yeah, I would actually want to talk about Bharti Airtel, Neeraj, because that's one counter which is clearly, had some really good show in today's day of trade. There was this MSCI report where they confirmed that there is going to be a rebalancing which will take place back in Feb, and there was a confirmation to that account. They said that this would happen somewhere in the Feb, and with this confirmation, there was this uncertainty which was surrounding the timing of a possible weight revision, which now is out of the way for the stock. And do remember the fact that NSDL has already updated the FII limit for Airtel from 49% to 100%, and somewhere in Feb you would see the rebalancing effect actually taking place for MSCI when it comes to at least Bharti Airtel. On account of that, you're seeing some strong show completely coming over for Bharti Airtel. So that's clearly one counter which has stolen all the limelight in trade today. But I would also like to highlight bunch of names that we are doing well, when it comes to the broader indices, because there are a couple of names which have made, strong innings when it comes to the session of trade today. We have something in the likes of PVR, which had a good show. Apart from that, a few of earnings also sailed it pretty well in trade. For PVR Q3 numbers, the revenue was down by 95%, and the company reported an EBITDA loss of 78 crore as compared to a gain of nearly 307 crore that we've seen in the corresponding quarter of the previous year. Nevertheless, the losses were way lower than what the street or the analyst community was estimating. On account of that, you saw a strong upturn, but nevertheless, some amount of profit booking crept in, and because of which the stock pulled down by the end of the trade. Nevertheless, the gains were sufficient to an extent of around 1.5% to 2% in trade. Apart from that, the commentary was pretty encouraging, be it in terms of working capital, be it in terms of the capex, or be it in terms of the debt servicing obligation, where the company has said that it has sufficient and more reasonable liquidity to meet all its debt and the interest obligation. Of course, Venki's India is another counter that I'd like to highlight in today's trade, because it's been some amount of profit booking for this counter right from the start of the year. But if you look at the trend, some amount of recovery which took place in today's session of trade when it came to Venki, because this stock has been impacted with the kind of growing cases of flu that we're seeing, the bird flu that we're seeing in India, because of which the stock has taken some amount of hit. Nevertheless, at this point of time, recovery is back to the fore. I would also talk about SAIL, because the OFS on the day one has done rather well exceptional demand which took place. The issue got subscribed more than 3.6 times. And of course, this was just the day one. On account of that, you've seen some amount of traction being building in for sale. Do remember the fact that only in the next week that most of the steel companies will be coming out with numbers. Sale typically has done very well when it comes to the peers for the entire quarter at this point of time, year on year basis. So clearly some amount of momentum building in for this counter. But apart from that, there is slew of earnings which will be keeping an eye on for the week to come, because that's clearly one bit of action heavy week that we are looking at. 16 Jan you have HDFC Bank, 18 Jan you have Mindtree, 20th Jan you have Bajaj Finance, Finserv. Along with that, 20th Jan, you have Hindustan Zinc. Now, this typically would be an interesting one because any highlights related to the parent Vedanta buyback when it comes to the proposal voluntary of 5%, that will be, I think most of the analyst community would be focusing in there. But apart from that, on 21st January, you have number of companies coming out with the numbers, be it in terms of Asian Bank, be it in terms of JSW Steel, Yes Bank, JSPL. In fact, the whole lot of steel companies would be actually reporting in the numbers when it comes to the later part of the week. Neeraj, at this point of time, I'd like to come back to you and ask you if there's any trend specifically that you're picking up.
No, Nikki, I think all eyes on the globe. And if the globe does okay, we do okay. If the globe doesn't, we don't. But day one of the post-Biden stimulus performance for the US markets, and I think all eyes will be out there. What's your sense? How is the globe shaping up, Nikki, today?
At this point of time, European markets are pretty much trading with a negative bias. So we aren't really picking up some amount of positive cues to an extent. FTSE 100 had turned positive a tad bit, but it remains to be seen how does the globe pan out. But Neeraj, it's going to be an action-heavy week back in the domestic market. So clearly, all eyes would be on set of steel companies and slew of nifty 50 names which will be coming out with numbers in the next week. But with this, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching.